Good morning, everyone. I'm Joe Cuello, Professor of Biosystems Engineering at the University of Arizona. This morning, I'm joined by David Proenza. David is the CEO at Foodchain, based in Panama City in Panama, and is also president of the Foundation for the Development of Controlled Environment Agriculture. Welcome, David.
Good morning. Good morning to you, Joel, and all your audience out there. Thank you for having me this morning for this interview.
Yes. So, David, you are an American, and in fact, you're a former United States Marine, Semper Fi. But in the last 20 years or so, you've been living and working in Panama, and you have become the de facto prime mover and major catalyst for the development of the controlled environment agriculture and vertical farming industry, not only in Panama, but in the rest of Latin America and the Caribbean region as well. Tell us how that came about, how you encountered this industry, and why you feel passionate about it.
Okay, I've been in the food business for 32 years, so I have a long history in food production, processing, packing, distribution, and the whole distribution chain. What happened in 2009, Panama, where I produce food and export it primarily to Europe and the United States, in Panama, but also in other countries as well in Latin America. Panama started going through a climate change scenario. And we have a 3-month period in Panama that it doesn't rain. I mean, zero, no rain. And it's called the dry arc. And so we produce different types of watermelons and melons and that type of products for export. What happened is in 2009, it started raining. I mean, a lot of rain. And we lost around 60% of our food production. And then the other one, we had a lot of problems with fusarium and a lot of other things that causes rain. And the thing is that since it's never rained like that, it caught everybody, caught us as a company, it caught all the other farmers off guard, and we weren't prepared to take corrective measures on a timely basis. So you can imagine everybody scrambling to buy the right chemicals and agrochemicals to solve the issues. So all the experts and weatherman and weather people know that say, this is a one-time phenomenon, it'll never happen again. Well, in 2010, it happened again. And that's when alarms started going off. That time we were a little more prepared. We're like, let's just prepare just in case. So we took prepared measures for that. However, we still lost at that time over 30% of our farms and our food production. At that time, we're like, after the season, we got together and said, okay, we formed a committee and we said, okay, we have to see where this thing's going. I think this climate change it's staying, it's not going. We started looking what's going on in the world because, you're in Panama, small country, you see what's going on here. And so now I'm like, okay, let's see what's really going on around the rest of the world. So climate change became real for us. Right. And so to make a long story short, I saw an article, a very short article on Dr. Kosai at the University of Chiba in Tokyo, and that the Japanese government just gave him $130 million to develop this plant factory, as they call it, vertical farming. So it caught my attention. And it took me about a year to actually be able to meet Dr. Kosai and what he was doing in the Kanasonoa campus. I probably pronounced it wrong, but anyway, it's the campus where the vertical farming and controlled environment agriculture is being produced. So together with about 7-8 agronomists, we went over there and had a talk with Dr. Kosai and his staff, and then he showed us a little bit of the vertical farming concept. And what we did is we brought it back. I did a little mini tray, testing it. And so that's how it all started. It started at Chiba University, based on what was happening in the field in Panama and throughout other production areas in Latin America. That's how we got introduced to vertical farming.
Yes. Oh, wow. That's really very good and quite dramatic, actually. So just for the information of our audience, Latin America and the Caribbean is composed of about 33 countries, according to the United Nations. And together, they account for about 16% of the total export of agricultural and food products in the world. And they account for about 4% of the import. So it's a net global exporter of food and agricultural products. But the challenge, as David mentioned, is the impact of the changing climate. And in 2016, the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization issued a report that concluded that the changing climate really constitutes a threat to the basis for food security in the entire region. And as David mentioned, mainly because of the shift in the rainfall patterns, the extreme weather events in terms of storms as well as drought. And so it is a threat to the food security and the local economy of the region. David, you mentioned Dr. Kozai. So Dr. Kozai, of course, was a professor at Chiba University, and eventually he became the director, the president of the Plant Factory Association, or the Vertical Farming Association in Japan.
Yes. Just a little history note. We were the first foreign company to be a member of the Japan Plant Factory Association.
That's excellent. Yes. So then, David, given that history and your exposure to it and your realization that vertical farming, indoor agriculture is a critical necessity for your region in Latin America, how did the idea of CIPAC come to you?
Okay. When we first started this, went to Japan, and then we started doing research of what other people were doing in this space in vertical farming. This was back in 2011, thereabouts. And, there was hardly nothing back then, not like today. I mean, you just Google and you get thousands of people and doing something on vertical farming. So we found out because I wanted to train our people. Our team, we were traditional farmers, right, growing traditional crops. So this thing about vertical farming and hydroponics and controlled environment, it was all new to us. Even though back then I had almost over 25 years of experience back then. Nevertheless, it was all new to us. So we had to go. The first thing we had to do is train our people. Right. So we took on to, and at that time, Panama had zero training or zero anything on hydroponics. Right. So we had to go to Costa Rica, we had to go to Mexico, we had to go to Spain. And the first step was, okay, we got to train our people in hydroponics and see how we grow in hydroponics, because normally we grew on a third. And so that's the first thing. Then we started going and getting training on controlled environment agriculture was the second step. So we went to the University of Arizona. You guys have in April, I think it's April every year or thereabouts, courses on that. So we sent our people there. I've sent them to other places to learn as well. Those that couldn't speak English, I sent them to Mexico. And there wasn't much there on controlled environment at that point. It was over 10 years ago. And then I started, after that, we're like, okay, now we got to learn this vertical thing. I like the idea as a farmer that in 1 square meter, I could go up in multi-level and grow a vast amount of food. So right. The multiplication process. Yeah. And so we started going every year, making the rounds, as I call it. We take a group of people, we go to United States and visit some universities there. And then we go to Wageningen University, and then we went to Japan, Chiba University of Japan. We went to Taiwan National University. And in other words, we went there and started seeing what everybody was doing in the controlled environment, vertical farming space. Okay. So that's what we did. Now, what happened is during those visits, I saw that one university or one research center was studying light. The other one was studying the nutrient contact. The other was studying the environment aspect and how it affects the plant. So everybody was doing something different. Then we went every year. We did this for about 7 years straight. So the next year we go and made our rounds again. And then the university that was studying lights are not studying nutrient formula. And the one that was studying nutrient formula not studying lights. And so, it occurred to me that I'm like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't really make any sense. Why doesn't everybody communicate? So I talked to some of them Oh, yes, we talked to everybody. I said, yeah, but do you share information? I think, because I felt that it was redundant in many cases. And the other thing that these trips, like you imagine, 5, 6, 7 people traveling every year around the world became very expensive. And so then the idea occurred to me. He said, why don't we have a Congress in Panama and then have people come to us, have all the professors of knowledge and all these experts come to us and train us here in Panama. And then instead of, Panama's a small country. So I'm like, well, we'll open it up to the world to come. And that's how the Congress on Control Environment and Agriculture started in Panama. The first one in 2015. And I'd like to make a shout out to Chris Higgins, who's my partner, was very instrumental in helping us establish the first 2 Congresses. Yes. So hello, Chris, if you're watching. If not, you should watch. So so that's how it started. And then after that first Congress, the idea occurred that, hey, we need to have, there's nothing in Latin America, and there's still nothing right now. So at that time, it occurred to me and said, we need to go ahead and do a world-class research and investigation center on controlled environment agriculture and vertical farming. So that's when the idea, right after the first Congress, that's when the idea of the CIPAC came. But the idea of the CIPAC was, we don't want to be another research center and be isolated and do the things ourselves. We want to connect the world. And so quickly, the concept of CIPAC is that and you visited where we're going to have the CIPAC, about 10 hectares. So the concept of CIPAC is that we want to connect research centers, universities throughout Latin America, and coordinate and say, okay, Chile, you're an expert in blueberries, so you're going to go ahead and do research investigation on blueberries. And Colombia, you're good in strawberries, so you're going to do the strawberries. And then have every different university research center do something different in a coordinated way. Then all that data will be housed in the central service and made available to everybody else. So if I'm in Chile and I investigated blueberries and did everything and know that it's ready for commercial use, and a farmer comes out of Colombia, for example, and he says, I don't want to grow strawberries, I want to do blueberries. So he said, here it is. Here's all the research, the manual, because besides all the research data, we want to do the marketing. We're going to develop the marketing plan, the economic costs, and just basically a turnkey operation to give to the farmer. Our concept is to provide that to the farmers and work with the small and medium-sized farmer as well. Obviously, they may not develop a huge full-blown vertical farm, but we can do little by little and help them get to that time or that space where they can do a big vertical farm aspect. So that's the general concept of CIPAC. So we've been promoting that over the last 2 Congresses, in 2017 that we did, in 2019, plus a lot of lobbying and with governments, not only in Panama, but throughout Latin America and throughout the world as well, universities and businesses, and everybody is excited and motivated to do the CIPAC. As you know, Joy, you were recently in Panama with a group of experts, and you saw firsthand what we want to accomplish.
Okay. Now, for the benefit of our audience, could you please define the acronym CIPAC?
Okay, CIPAC. Okay, it's in Spanish, so let me translate into English. All right. It's the Center for Research and Food Production in Controlled Environment Agriculture.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, CIPAC. And when you established CIPAC, it was important for you that it be established as a public-private organization or entity. Can you tell us why?
I believe something like, I'm going to, the whole purpose of the CIPAC is that we want to advance the controlled environment and vertical farming primarily throughout Latin America. And obviously this will be available for the rest of the world. So it's not just Panama, certainly not just Latin America, but everywhere. But our primary focus is to get Latin America as a whole catch up the rest of the world. Yes. And basically that's it. Latin America usually is the last one of the last countries that to apply all these new technology to come across. So that's one of the main purposes, to get Latin America caught up on the CIPAC and the way that we're structuring it. That will help to really elevate Latin America in the research and development of this new technology.
Right. And this is intended really not to be a government research and development project, but it's really a cooperation between industry, private industry, and government to be able to carry out this research for the development of the controlled environment and vertical farming industry in Latin America. Is that accurate?
That's correct. We didn't want to make it totally private. We want government involvement as well in a partnership.
Correct.
Number one, because they got a lot of money. I think that's important, to be honest. And number two, we need the private sector is to actually be the implementers of all this. So it's a good relationship that we have. The Panamanian government is really making a commitment and an effort to establish CIPAC, and so we're really excited about this new venture that's starting already.
Right, and I'm happy with that, frankly, personally, because the government has resources, they have access, but there is an important need for the private industry really to be able to bring this technology and innovation to the market. And tell us about the major partners or the major founders of CIPAC.
Okay, well, CIPAC was going back to when the idea came about. One of the first people we went to is IICA, which is the International Institute of Agricultural Cooperation. They're a multilateral organization. They have 34 offices throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, and they're very strong in the. As a matter of fact, all they do is dedicate themselves in the agriculture to help government set policies as well as help farmers and producers. Right,
and David,
so we got them.
David, just for the benefit of the audience, so IICA is the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture, and you're right, it includes all of the countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, plus the United States and Canada. So there are 34 countries.
And Spain.
Yes, and Spain is an associate member. That's right. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. So yes, that's it's a very big organization. Been around for over 80 years, and they have access to all the governments in Latin America because that's how they operate.
Right.
And so that's the first people that I knocked the door on and got them motivated and excited on the concept of CIPAC. From there, we went to CENACIT, which is the Institute of Science and Technology in Panama.
Yes.
It's a autonomous government agency or part of the Panamanian government. Right. And since they're science and technology, obviously they would fall right in line for what we wanted to do. So then we motivated and convinced them, hey, this is the way to go. This is science and technology at the highest level. And so they got on board. So now we have two great entities on board. And from there, we then went to the Ministry of Agriculture and then started going and they got on board, and then the Ministry of Commerce, and then obviously the private sector, very strong in the private sector. We also got the University of Panama on board. So right now the board consists of the CENACIT, the University of Panama, IICA, and 3 private businesses. So the board is, because IICA is not on the board, they're consultants to the board. So it's 3 governments and 2 private that's on the board of directors of CIPAC.
Right. David, I mean, you could not have done it better. That's a really solid coalition, if you will, for CIPAC. But tell us about the contribution of the University of Panama. The University of Panama has a specific contribution that it's offering for CIPAC. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. The University of Panama, they have the only agricultural faculty in Panama of all the other universities involved. And real quick, in 2016, I put together Chiba University and the University of Panama and an agreement where there's a transfer of knowledge, where Panama sends their students and a professor every year to train at Chiba University, and Chiba University brings in students to kind of see the agricultural field in Panama. So it's been a relationship since 2016 and still going very strong. And so the university has been very pro indoor farming, vertical farming, and controlled environment agriculture since day one. And they're right now the secretary of, they hold the position of secretary of CIPAC. What the university has done is we needed land for this, and nothing motivates people when they see action, especially when you're raising funds or raising interest and whatever. So one of the first things that we did when a couple of years ago, right before the pandemic, is that we negotiated with the University of Panama 10 hectares of really prime land right by the airport, beautiful place. You visited. Yeah. And so that area right there, the university is building their agricultural campus. And right next to it is IDIAP. IDIAP is the investigation arm of the Ministry of Agriculture. And you have the Ministry of Agriculture there. So that whole area is being slowly converted into, and it will be converted into a major educational and research center.
Right.
So the CIPAC will also be converted into an economic zone, which I have to mention, that was your idea. It was never thought of until you came and gave us the idea. And what I explained to you is that Panama has laws that no matter where you're at in the country, if you have a business, you can apply to become an economic zone and develop business as part of that law. So we can convert those 10 hectares into economic zone and bring in private businesses and do a lot of things. So yeah, that was, I have to tell everybody, that was Joel's idea, and it was a fantastic idea, and everybody bought it day one. We're like, hey, we already got the laws. We just got to fill out some documents and get the government to approve it. So yeah, that was a fantastic idea that I think will move forward CIPAC in a big way as well.
But David, what is really exciting about it, as you described, is that 10 hectare land area that is close to the campus of the University of Panama is only 3 minutes away from the Panamanian International Airport. And now that CIPAC, in terms of its research facilities, will be established there, and it's close to another research facility of the Ministry of Agriculture of Panama. And with that economic zone to be established also within that area, that will attract local and regional and global companies in this space of vertical farming, controlled environment agriculture, you're actually building essentially an innovation ecosystem for indoor agriculture and vertical farming right there in Central America for the entire region that will be connected internationally and globally for the rest of the world. So this is really exciting for the industry, and it's going to benefit not just Latin America and the Caribbean, but really the entire industry globally. So if one is in this space this early is a cause for excitement and celebration. So tell us, what are the next steps for CIPAC in the short term?
Okay, right now we're finishing up the business plan, the strategic business plan that will be done here in the next week. And will be submitted for the government. And the government has committed to providing $18 million for the development of CIPAC.
This is the government of Panama. The government of
Panama. Yeah. That's correct. The government of Panama. That's correct. And it is scheduled to start construction at the first quarter of 2023. So this thing is moving forward, and we also have it's important that I mention we also have CAF, which is also a multilateral organization involved with us from the beginning, and they're a development bank. So what happened is Panama is getting a sovereign loan from CAF, from the development bank, Latin American Development Bank, to go ahead and develop CIPAC. So it's putting together all these pieces to make this a reality.
Right. And David, I want to touch on a little point. Well, it's not a little point; it's a big one that you touched on earlier, and that is CIPAC's role in terms of its transferring innovation and providing capacity building in this space, not only, of course, to large corporations, but also to the small and medium enterprises, particularly, of course, in Latin America and the Caribbean, which I think is very, very important. So, how do you think CIPAC would actually carry that out in terms of enabling them and helping them?
Okay, what we want to do is, the vertical farming, as you know, and control environment in general is very capital intensive.
Yeah.
And so, you're right, automatically excluding small and medium farmers. So what we want to do in CIPAC is develop systems and processes in a way that the farmers start at their level, on a controlled environment, maybe just plastic covering to, Panama rains 9 months out of the year. So actually rains more now because of climate change. It used to be 9 months. And so what we want to do is take the farmer, get them involved from the beginning, and then have them work to them expand and get them into vertical farming. We believe, as everybody, that there is a looming food crisis coming up if we don't ramp up food production.
Yes.
And right now, since we had that small symposium, Joel, we've gotten 3 solid interests from Honduras, Ecuador, and Chile that they want to form part of CIPAC, and they're willing to bring in money. So we see this interest in Latin America, and as far as the private business and governments, to really move this forward. So I believe that there's a strong inclination, but in everything we do, we're going to have a focus on that we need to help the small farmer and medium farmer. So it's not like we're going to say, oh no, this research is just for the big companies or the big boys that want to come in, and it will be. But we also have a mission that we need to include small. So there's going to be developments that's going to come out for the small and medium farmer, which then that could be used all over the world as well. So yes, that is a key point of the CIPAC, because we have to. They say that 80% of the food is produced by small farmers, so we have to get them involved one way or the other. Otherwise, our food supply system. Look what's going on right now with the supply chain and food shortages and all that. This baby formula situation in the United States, it's heartbreaking. When you see these mothers trying to find, baby formula. So, we have to ramp up our food supply, and we have to include the small farmers.
Correct. So one possible scenario for CIPAC, and tell me if this is viable, is of course to organize the smallholder farms into associations or cooperatives so that they could have economy of scale, and then provide them with capacity building in terms of innovation and technology, and even capital, I would say, financial. And then there's a possibility as well of linking them in the supply chain, the value chain, production chain of the larger companies. And some of these companies could be located, of course, in the plant special economic zone. So I think that would be one possible scenario for CIPAC to facilitate. Is that an accurate scenario?
That's the way you said it is easy.
Yes.
Implement it, it's going to be much harder. But
Of
yes,
course.
we're going to have world-class people involved with us. So we're going to find solutions.
Yes.
I think that should be our motto. We find solutions. So yes, it's everything you said, and it's definitely easier said than done. But that's that's what we're going to work on. And we're sticking to the plan. That's
the vision. That's the goal, right? So that everybody really will benefit from this and will get their equitable share of the benefits of this industry that is globally connected. So before we end our program, I really would like to request you, David, for the benefit of our Spanish-speaking audience, if you could just tell them very briefly what CIPAC is all about en español, por favor.
Español, okay. El CIPAC, que es el Centro de Investigación y Producción en Ambiente Controlado, es un centro de nivel mundial que se está desarrollando en Panamá, a partir del próximo año 2023. Y el CIPAC, el objetivo del CIPAC no es solo para investigar y desarrollar lo que es agricultura en ambiente controlado, sino también en la finca vertical, pero coordinado con otras universidades en la América Latina y también en Estados Unidos, Europa y Asia. Y lo que queremos hacer es organizar un ecosistema fuerte a donde todos estamos trabajando y beneficiándose en ese ecosistema, compartir conocimiento y investigación y todo eso es abierto para todos. So, lo invitamos que quiera participar con nosotros, con mucho gusto, tenemos las manos abiertas para que venga acá y lo ayude a nosotros a armar algo que yo creo que va a ser muy importante para el mundo.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, David. So definitely
Okay.
we will be definitely in touch, and we will of course keep everybody updated and abreast with the fast developments that are happening in terms of establishing CIPAC, because this would be something really that the whole world, the whole industry globally will be benefiting from in terms of cooperation and collaboration. So thank you so much, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joel, for the time. And, everybody, we have wide open hands if you want to participate and help make this a reality, which we are making a reality, but with your help, it definitely will become so. So we have open arms for everybody that want to participate. And I want to thank you, Joel, for coming down and spending time with us, really seeing the vision, but also your input is extremely valuable. So I want to, on behalf of myself and CIPAC, thank you very much.
And thank you for your leadership. Thank you. Bye for now.